With the release of the recent Parting the Veil Live that dived deeper into exploration, this was the perfect time to talk about the item system for Pantheon Rise of the Fallen and what we can expect. A few weeks ago, we dived into what we knew so far about the progression system, and during that video, we discussed how Pantheon will be following a mostly horizontal progression system instead of vertical. This means that progression won't just be about finding the gear with the highest item level. There's going to be alternative forms of gear, a multitude of various places to farm for experience, and items that are not only going to be extremely beneficial for your character, but some that will entirely change the way you play or handle a situation. In the recent Parting the Veil, they talked about some of the items we'll discover and what the benefits will be for using them. But before we start diving into those examples, let's talk about the item system that we'll be coming across in the game. Now, I think the best thing to start off with is that a lot of these special items as far as equipment and usables go might remind you of Baldur's Gate 3, D&D, or similar types of tabletops. And on top of that, it may seem that Pantheon is being incredibly ambitious by saying that there will be options like these, because you don't really see this type of variation in modern MMOs. It's more based around your character's power and survivability. But in games like EverQuest, which Pantheon draws inspiration from, this has always been a complete reality. There might be items you could find in the game that could give you movement speed boosts, or mana regeneration, which was huge in old school classic MMORPGs where downtime between fights was really common. Maybe even items that would increase your haste, which was super good for melee based characters as it would increase your attack speed by a crap ton. Or even just items that had incredible stats and could drop from the most unexpected mobs like a goblin or kobold, or some of the deadliest like the dragons. Pantheon wants to recreate this kind of experience and allow you to take your time enjoying the journey without feeling the pressure of rushing to endgame to obtain the best in slot items. Aside from equipment, we have consumables, which is one of my favorite topics to dive into for these games, and in Pantheon, the latest information I could find stated that we would be able to choose at least one consumable and one non-consumable profession for our characters. The two considered under the consumable category are Alchemist and Provisioner. For Alchemist, these would focus on elixirs and toxins, while the Provisioner would make drinks and food items. Earlier this year, during the April Developer Roundtable, Visionary Realms confirmed on the provisioning side, brewing drinks would be a part of the crafting and there will be a specialization specifically for this, and potentially one for the poison making on the alchemy side. Just for reference, there should be multiple specializations we can choose between for each crafting profession, but the main thing they wanted us to know is that for consumables, they don't want it to be the be-all end-all for doing just about anything in the game, but more of a benefit to your character that can be used for something that helps you better survive a certain situation. According to the same developer roundtable that was held earlier this year, there's also going to be crafting and gathering equipment that may give you bonuses for those respective professions. Although as far as a gear enhancement system goes, it doesn't seem like Pantheon is going to be employing something like that. And I haven't found anything to suggest that we'll be able to socket things like gems into our gear, but there may be enchantments. Now, aside from equipment that falls into many different categories, such as gear that's best in slot but can be found at lower levels, gear that's just as good as what you're wearing but has different stat bonuses or special effects, gear with similar stats but completely different looks, and a lot more, Pantheon is also going to feature skills and items that offer utility. This is where the recent developer stream comes in. Both Minus and Joppa were able to talk about some of the examples we'll be coming across and not just how they could help with travel, but also survival. Think about how it felt to claim items in RPGs that would help you traverse to a new location or upgrade your character overall. One of the first examples they give of an item like this that we could find is the Crown of Illumination.
This is advanced darkness.
You see, in Pantheon, not all darkness is created equal. By the time we get to release, there will probably be certain races that are capable of seeing in the dark, and for those that can't, aside from of course the obvious tools we could use for this like torches and lanterns, there could be foods and elixirs that give nighttime vision as well. But what they've confirmed here is that this more advanced version of darkness goes beyond that of regular nighttime or even subterranean darkness, where a torch or a lantern belt or mage light spell from a wizard would be all you need to light up your path. The Crown of Illumination is meant for the most unnatural, invasive forms of darkness, like that which could come out of certain fractures. And as they describe it, these fractures are locations that can appear in the game world that are connected to unnatural phenomenons, which sounds like these are going to be open world rifts that we can come across and fight monsters in, but also might be able to do a little bit of open world exploring if we're able to actually teleport into them. The second unique item they talk about is the Boots of 5 Feathers. Say you're running a dungeon and you step on a trap door, or you're fighting out in the open world and get knocked off a cliff, these Boots of 5 Feathers will give you a short duration hover effect, and depending on the situation, this could very well save your life. The third example is the Ring of Anchors. It does exactly what it sounds like. It allows you to sink to the deepest of depths at a much faster rate to explore to your heart's content. However, I feel like this is one of the most dangerous unique items you could come across, because just like they point out during the stream, this doesn't give you the ability to breathe underwater. And just to remind you, after you reach level 4 in Pantheon, any death past that point will result in you dropping what's in your inventory along with losing a portion of your experience. Your equipment along with this ring should be safe as long as you're wearing it, but if you're planning on exploring with it underwater, you probably want to make sure your inventory is clear aside from any tonics or food that give you water breathing. And then they talk about my personal favorite, the Shield of Mirrors. Now all they say about it is that it'll likely be necessary for reflecting certain effects, but clearly there's only one thing that most people's minds went to as soon as they said Shield of Mirrors. One of the other items mentioned, and this is the one the community asked about on stream, is the Skyhold Grapple. This one is designed to grab onto a surface up to a certain distance away and pull the wielder to that location. And from a lore standpoint, he says that the gnomes have actually discontinued this device, which means that it'll end up being very difficult to find out in the open world, but would most likely come with many benefits if you do find it. The next topic they cover dives into the idea of clickable illusion or disguise items that could be used for adventuring to full factions or sneak into various places, things like that. Joppa confirms that we will have something like this, although the item versions of that will be very rare to come by, with the more common situations of illusion coming from the enchanter. This is also something that won't just serve as a cosmetic benefit, but also tie into your interaction with the world, just like how the faction and keeper systems can affect it. And following this, Joppa even mentions how when it comes to a PvP server, or PvP experience for Pantheon, he's already enthusiastic about the way the faction system along with illusions will play heavily into that. Now, he didn't want to dive too much deeper into that aspect, and it's very understandable because of how much of a hot topic it would be, but as he said that, the first thing that came to mind for me was the way that Blade and Soul handled its faction PvP system when it was first released. From what I remember, in Blade and Soul, when you got to the end game during that time period, you'd be able to put on your faction's outfit in the end game zones and complete objectives to gain rewards with your respective sides. But while wearing these outfits, open world PvP was possible. I'm not sure how much they really expanded on this aspect, but I could definitely see this being a thing in Pantheon, and even having a place in the regular servers alongside ones branded as PvP. But again, I'm not really too concerned if PvP ends up in Pantheon or not. I'm more interested in experiencing its core values in their fully developed form, as these days, that's become more of what I've been looking for from an MMORPG than the modern choices. Now, how would we actually go about getting these unique items? Will it be similar to EverQuest 1 or 2, where we farm on camps for a long time and they're really rare? Or do we need to go through long or epic quest lines, but everyone has a guaranteed chance to get them? Per Joppa's reply, they will be rare. They want them to feel special to the player base and for the feeling towards those items to last for a long time. So some of these items will be able to be obtained from truly epic quests that can be completed, and some of them might even be bound to being in the right place at the right time. And this could include things like event-based rewards. Maybe there's a location that has multiple different types of fractures that can spawn, but there's also an extremely rare type that can form there. What I started thinking is that the way he described it, I think it's possible that certain items or secrets could go undiscovered for years, and that would be amazing to see. I think that's the kind of mystery some people want in these MMORPGs, but they would still have to find a way to defeat or circumvent the greatest obstacle when it comes to any of this, and that's data mining. But like I mentioned a while ago, I do remember them mentioning during one of the live streams of having a plan to counteract this. I think by potentially making a lot of these assets server-side or something similar. One of the last things mentioned, at least on the item side that I wanted to talk about today, was the effect that Conjured Items would have on our exploration experience, and if these would actually be in Pantheon. Maybe there'll be something as simple as a summoned light source, or something that could provide any number of bonus effects when consumed. There might even be some that help us traverse over certain pathways or enter into certain areas. Joppa gave examples like items for invisibility, maybe we could pull an Alice in Wonderland and shrink, items that would improve our night vision, and so many more. These are topics I wanted to cover when it came to the item system in Pantheon, but this stream was filled with even more detail about exploration, such as class advantages you'd have during exploring, class abilities that are tied to adventuring, gliders in Pantheon and the limitations that come with using them, abilities we might gain from the climbing skill, scouting abilities, invisible walls, and the question of if pathways and roads will provide bonuses to travel on and stick to. Highly recommend checking out this live stream yourself, and I think there's still more that we could go into when it comes to what to expect from this game's item system, but for the moment this should serve as a baseline gist of what we'll see. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to check out the Pantheon newsletter that was just released to us yesterday, and have a wonderful night or day, folks. Farewell.
Just